Monkey, you want to do yours first?
Sure. Let's do the long one first. I got two stories. One's relatively short. This one's kind
Right.
of long, but I thought it was interesting. So, of course, I'm always going to pick something that I think is interesting. It says, from marijuana moment we get, it says, legalizing cannabis leads to substantial decrease in intimate partner violence, study shows. So that's pretty cool. It says a new analysis of violence between intimate partners concludes that legalizing cannabis for adult use results in a substantial decrease in rates of intimate partner violence. Now, if that's a true statement, I'm all for legalization just to get the violence out of this.
Mm-hmm.
The findings also indicate that recreational cannabis legalization substantially impacts the relationship between heavy drinking and intimate partner violence, IPV, possibly as a result of people substituting marijuana for alcohol. Now, we've said this many times. We all believe that alcohol is a little bit more aggressive to you, and it has a tendency to kind of wind you up a little more, maybe make you a little more violent. So I wasn't surprised when I saw the title of this article. It says author Samantha Jean Baldwin, a Georgetown Master of Public Policy student, wrote in a thesis that the findings are surprising, saying that the links between recreational cannabis legalization and IPV, that's the violence thing, require careful consideration. As cannabis use is known as a risk factor for IPV, and legalization of recreational cannabis typically increases usage, RML could be expected to increase the recreational marijuana legalization could increase the levels of violence, Baldwin wrote, adding, reduced alcohol use could complicate this relationship if marijuana acts as a substitute to alcohol, and alcohol consumption is a greater risk factor for IPV than marijuana use. Any reduction in alcohol consumption would lessen the impact of RML on violence. Now, it's interesting here because, yes, anytime you reduce alcohol and substitute cannabis for that, in most cases, it's a more of a chill high and less violent. I don't know, and I don't know everybody who's ever smoked cannabis, but I've been in a few places and I've never seen anybody get real high and all of a sudden decide he wanted to fight everybody in the room. I have been in a bar room and watched one guy have too much to drink and decide he wanted to fight everybody in the room. And I've seen that many times.
Right.
So this is not surprising to me, knowing that, yeah, if you smoke a little weed before you're having sex with your partner, that you're going to have a more chill and peaceful session. That's just, I mean, come on, guys. This is not rocket science here. It says it's cannabis use is typically risk factor, or even that. The study drew on data from the Federal Bureau of Investigation's National Incident-Based Reporting System, which includes details of crimes that are reported to police. Baldwin used data from 2013 to 2019, deciding not to include data from the COVID-19 pandemic. I think that was a good move. The analysis found that legalization of recreational cannabis resulted in 56.6 fewer reported incidents of violence per 100,000 people. The results of the analysis showed that recreational marijuana legalization actually reduces rates of violence, the paper says. However, the reasoning for this unexpected result requires further studies. Existing literature suggests that cannabis and substances are generally correlated with higher rates of violence, Baldwin wrote. Now, that statement right there, every time I read this article, and I go through the statement, it says that cannabis and substance use are generally correlated with higher rates of violence. Again, I don't know where this person's getting this from, but I really don't know a lot of violent cannabis users. I find the opposite from what I see in the people that I know. When people get high, they tend to get chill and more peaceful. You know, even if they're in a bad mood, after they have a little bit something and to take the edge off, they seem to calm down. So I don't understand what this person is saying, that cannabis use increases violence. Okay, well, we'll just go with that. Let's see. The increased usage could be acting as a substitute for other substances that have a stronger impact rates on violence, like alcohol and illicit drugs, the paper says. Alternatively, cannabis use may be less of a risk factor for violence than previously thought. I agree with that. The prohibition of cannabis historically may have also played a role in the trends, Baldwin pointed out, writing, because cannabis has been illegal for recreational use until the past decade. Those who used it may have been more impulsive and more likely to engage in risky behaviors on the average. Notably, one finding of the study was that the states without legal cannabis, violence rates appeared to fall as proportional of heavy drinkers in the states rose. Okay, violence rates appeared to fall as a proportion of heavy drinkers in the states rose. This means that states without legal cannabis actually have lower rates of violence as heavy drinkers increase. So that seems backwards to me.
So the amount of people who were drinking a lot of alcohol increased, but the domestic violence, because that's essentially what this is. I don't know why they have to spin names, these fancy names for things all the time.
IPV, yeah, I'm just calling it violence instead of IPV, intimate personal violence. It's violence.
Yeah, weird.
But yeah, I mean, it just seems common sense to people who are in the cannabis community that don't abuse alcohol heavily, that cannabis seems to be more of a peaceful solution for us, at least is what we feel. And, like I said, have any of you ever been to a social club or anything like that and seen somebody stand up in a club and want to fight everybody? It ain't going to happen. After a bong rip, he just wants to sit down there and chill and enjoy himself. He don't want to fight. That just ain't happening.
Unless the cannabis-induced psychosis kicks in.
That's and I still haven't seen that myself. I'm still waiting for that one myself, And I consume a lot of cannabis, and I don't have the psychosis. So I don't get all this stuff like that. So the additional research, Baldwin says in a thesis, should focus on more granular trends within states, as well as the impact of retail cannabis accessibility on violence. Studies should also evaluate how different types of cannabis policies impact the violence. The paper continues, noting that the spectrum of policy approaches has a range from fully legal decriminalization, medical, and full recreational marijuana legalization. The study acknowledges that findings is counter to prior research finding alcohol consumption to be a major risk for IPV. Now, why would that surprise them? Counter to what they thought, that alcohol is a major risk factor. Alcohol's always been a major risk factor for violence. People, in states with recreational marijuana laws, it continues, the relationship is reversed. In those states, every additional percentage point increase in the population of heavy drinkers led to 8 additional increases of violence. That's interesting there. The additional research, Baldwin says in a thesis, should focus on more granular trends within the state. This has already been there. That's a repeated line in the article. So anyway, I don't understand where it's coming from, where it says, in states without recreational cannabis laws, that violence is lower. And they're saying that's due to the alcohol consumption. So the study seems to be flawed, but I do agree with the fact that in most cases, if you're going to use something to kind of take the edge off and get you in the mood, that cannabis seems to be a little bit less violent, a little bit less aggressive, and a little bit
unless
more
you're in the mood for
friendly.
Fighting,
Exactly.
Like fighting around the world. Remember that one?
You want to have sex and fight at the same time. Hey, whatever.
What the fuck, monkey?
I have no idea, man. But yeah, I mean, it just seems pretty common. We've talked about this many times, how cannabis does help in intimate situations many times for many people, and it can help a lot of people. So this was, when I saw the article, I'm going like, well, yeah, but when I read the article, I'm going like, I don't think this person actually has it. It almost sounds like the person who wrote the thesis never even used cannabis.
But that's most likely the case. You know what I mean? It seems to be the case more often. Damn.
It does. It is. I don't know. But anyway, so if you want to have less violence when you're intimate with your partner, smoke weed.
Yeah. Scary, man. Because, domestic violence is not cool, everybody. And if you have a problem with alcohol to the extent where you find yourself being violent with people, stop drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favor and everybody else. Come on, man. Do the right thing. Yeah. Smoke weed instead.
If you love that person, you don't want to hurt them. Stop.
But it's good to see domestic violence cases dropping. At least there's that. And I don't know if they can do proper studies in this and make sure that they can get proper numbers so they can show it to the government and be like, look, surely that is another card that we can play towards legislation. Surely. You would think. If you have enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you for the full show on Sundays on youtube.com/high on homegrown. Thanks for watching.